Welcome to the AI Business News Desk. Terry Sweeney here, contributing editor with AI Business. And joining me now is Pamela Gupta, trusted AI and governance leader with Trusted AI. Pamela, thanks for joining us on the AI Business News Desk.
Thank you.
We are talking about AI's impact in the enterprise. Most enterprises have spent the last few years working with generative AI pilots. Talk about what's fundamentally changing as organizations begin to move to a production scale environment.
Sure. So that's a great question, right? Because we have seen with the implosion of generative AI, 2023, 2024, it was the novelty. Let's just use it for everything. But when reality hit, right? When you start looking at production data, when you start looking at sensitive data, that's going to touch millions of customers or have impact, which is extremely high impact, not just for the user, but also for the business, that's when we are seeing the reality set in of what we need to do to change
Sure.
and be impactful and to take it from POC to production. So a couple of things that are going to be holding back, and what I'm seeing out there holding back companies are a governance gap, right? If you don't know where your data is, if you don't know the access, if you don't know what is going to be the exposure.
And if users aren't trained to identify sensitive or proprietary data that,
Right.
that these LLMs are gobbling up like nobody's business, right?
Absolutely. So that is at an organization level, it's complete ownership of your content and what is the sensitivity, right? The data classification. We've been doing that for years, now more so than ever, that when you put it into a system that can interpret it and provide a much, much bigger exposure, you really have to control that really carefully. So governance gap is extremely critical. And the other one is a trust deficit.
Okay.
Right. You can build the best system in the world, but if your management doesn't know how it's making a decision, or the customers don't know why they're getting a certain decision, or um, a loan denial, for example, right, or a healthcare decision, a cancer diagnosis or something, right? You have to be extremely careful about being able to not only build the right system, but making sure that they have the right AI risks completely handled, which are unique to AI, such as
Sure.
transparency, explainability, et
Right,
cetera.
because we all want, in the end, credible results. The hallucinations are well documented, but yes, the models still need to be trained, obviously. Um, what separates successful implementations from the failed ones from where you sit?
So that's a million-dollar question, literally, because between the AI, the trust deficit and the AI governance gap, this is something I've been looking at for the last 6 years. I published a framework called AI Tips, Trust Integrated Pillars for Sustainability. And this was even before NIST came out with the AI RMF. I just submitted a revision to that. The, the most critical aspects that we want to look at, regardless of which framework we use, because we have several. We have ISO 42001, NIST AI RMF, the one I just mentioned that I have published. They have to be not only taking you can't do a check mark approach. It has to be extremely contextual for the business and for each use case, right? So there is no standard, okay, we have a ISO standard in place, and that's how we do, we are approaching it. It has to be extremely use case based
Mm,
because the risks are going to be very contextual and very use case based.
all
So
right.
that's what, you know,
Thanks. The industry itself seems to have moved on from Gen AI to, of course, agentic AI. It's the topic on everybody's lips, it seems. Um, how do you govern autonomous systems that are making decisions without human oversight? This seems to be a really troubling issue for companies to solve.
So yes, you're absolutely right, right? How do you govern where we were using AI systems for decision recommendation, right? Or making a recommendation or making a giving an analysis, to going from that to a decision implementation, right, autonomously. That's a big deal, right? If you have a agent that can autonomously do what I was giving you an example for healthcare earlier, right? Not just doing a triage, for example, but making a diagnosis and recommending it to a customer, taking that's a big difference than a analysis coming from a AI giving you a report, even from an LLM, right? Even from generative AI, to take it to execute is a big deal. To loan analysis to loan denial, that's an action. So the governance, of course, has to keep step with it. So some of my work that I've done is with the DoD, for example, which
Hmm.
they've been doing autonomous systems for a long time, right? Autonomous even well
Sure.
weapons. Okay, but when you are talking about mission critical systems, right? That's where the businesses have to kind of draw the line between mission critical or mission supportive, right? Use autonomous agentic AI for those systems first that are supportive and not mission critical in terms of supporting the decision making. And absolutely a human oversight is critical. So that will separate out a successful versus a highly impactful um, negatively or positively, right, system where you can show what were the risks you considered, how did you create those, corral that, right?
Sure.
Create those boundaries around what is the agentic AI decision making and who's the human in the loop. Not just a human saying, yeah, we've looked at it, not a check mark
Right.
approach
Right. Right.
again, but a human who has oversight and absolutely log everything because documentation is going to be very important because when the auditors show up, when they know, when they have their agenda lined up, right? Because it's a heavily dynamic and influx for situation for everyone, right?
Sure.
From regulators to organizations to auditors. But when they do show up, you have to be able to show why you made a certain decision,
Right. Right.
where you deployed, and what was your risk consideration.
An organization like the Department of Defense isn't obviously subject to auditors. So, what does responsible agentic AI look like for regulated industries like healthcare or finance, where there are very specific parameters that legal parameters that they have to operate within? Talk a little bit about that.
So the regulations, as you know, they are growing, right? We have a very influx state when it comes to regulations. If you look at the US, if you look at globally, but one thing I would say is common, right? Um, when it comes to heavily regulated industries like finance or healthcare, they have health industry specific guidance, okay? And that's extremely critical. So I just talked to somebody who is leading the responsible AI charter for healthcare, for example, and they were talking about what are the absolutely critical governance, operationalization mechanisms. So not just having a strategy or or a vision, but being able to create it so it's disseminated across the organization from boards to procurement to frontlines is extremely important. So to answer your question in another way, the regulations is absolutely important, are very important, but so is the industry expertise and knowledge because they are the ones driving what should be the approach. How do we govern this and
Right.
not have it as an afterthought?
Thank
So
you.
yeah.
Real briefly now, if you could, talk to us about what organizations should be doing right now to position themselves as leaders in the governance question as opposed to laggards. What do you recommend there?
First thing we have to do is make a decision. Do we want to come out ahead or do we want to fail, right? If you want to be a success with AI, then governance cannot be an afterthought, okay? It has to be baked in. That is what we are seeing even for companies that are successful now, okay? Then the other is to follow a framework, not just have it on a bookshelf, not just have it for a check mark, but really know, adopt it, understand it, and see how it affects from, again, from management to front lines, all right? What are those frameworks? I mentioned some of them, but we can, put in some notes later if you want to follow up. And the third, as I mentioned, right, have that wherewithal to not just be guided by regulations, because this is not your usual your systems, which are these are dynamic systems, they're cognitive systems. This is not a static system, even like a browser where you give it a search and it gives you results.
Sure.
You're actually having thinking power at your hands. So where you deploy it, how you deploy it, is extremely important to know where it can help you or where it can absolutely be fire and be destructive.
Well,
So
Pamela Gupta, some great insights around governance and AI. Thanks so much for joining us today.
thank you.
We've been talking with Pamela Gupta. This has been Terry Sweeney for AI Business News Desk. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.